Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to review this book. It's called The Big Leap by top-selling American author Gay Hendricks. This is the first book I read, let's say, 18 months ago of all the 150 books I've read, and I just want to tell you a little bit about it. So let's go and sit down over there with my copies and let's go and see what it's all about. Good. Come and take a seat, John. Right. I must say, this book is amazing. Incredible book. I love it. And as you can see, it's got a little fish taking a leap out of a small bowl of water into a large pond almost. So let's see what it's about. This book is so amazing, and I want to tell you all about it. So let's begin. The first chapter is incredible. It's called Remove Your Last Obstacle to Ultimate Success in Wealth, Work and Love. I'm sure John there behind the camera knows all about love. So one thing I must say is, as I read this book back in January 2014, I found it really challenging. So much so I had to read it again and again. But let's go through it. One thing that Gay Hendricks talks about in the introduction is something called your upper limits. And so we all have this, what he calls a glass ceiling. And no one generally wants to go beyond what their comfort is, where the glass ceiling is. So there's a few things I've noted here. So one of the things it says in the introduction is the upper limit problem is the only problem we need to solve. Love that. So all throughout this book, I've gone and highlighted the parts of the book that resonate with me. Another thing it says in the book is the glass ceiling they were operating under is held in place by a single problem, a barrier they didn't know they had. So a lot of people, according to Gay Hendricks, have got this glass ceiling, but they're not aware of it. So again, that was quite a new, refreshing idea to me. But it started to get exciting from that point, to think that I've got a glass ceiling in place. I'm not even aware of this glass ceiling because I'm living in just a zone of comfort and not thinking about how to break through that or go to the upper limit. Was amazing. So as I went through the book, I thought, yes, this sounds really good. Yes, this is so exciting. Yes, this is amazing. And there's so many great parts to it. So let's go on beyond the introduction and let's talk about some of the parts that I really resonated with me. One of the things it says is, I seem to have a limited tolerance for my life going well in general. When I hit the upper limit, I do something that stops my positive forward trajectory. What Gay Hendricks means by that is that when we start to do things and we feel good, is that we almost feel guilty that we're feeling too good. So we almost, like, subconsciously, without realizing, we stop ourselves and we think, this is going too good, something's going to go bad. And it's almost like it's a subconscious thing that he talks about. And I could definitely relate to that, because in my life, many times, things have gone really well and I've kept thinking, what next? What's going to happen? Something has to go down. So that's, again, that glass ceiling that he was referring to earlier on in the book. Each chapter is summarized, so that's really good. So one of the relevant things for this particular chapter, the question that he asks is, how can I extend the periods of contentment in my life? So rather than being just content, how can we extend it? How can we continuously be happy again and again and again, day after day after day? Again, this is such a great idea. And then he's got a line here. It says, the discovery catapulted me out of an excellent life into an extraordinary place I'd never imagined. So again, just thinking about what he's written in ongoing chapters, Gay talks about the fact that once he had discovered that he's got this glass ceiling, and that he could be happy again and again and again, day after day after day, that's when the trajectory of his life went up and up and up. And as this book unfolded, that's what's so exciting about it, because it almost takes you on a journey of how his life changed through going from where he was, going through the glass ceiling, and understanding that he could stay in that positive trajectory continuously. So of course you can imagine this is exciting. So back onto chapter 1, it says the problem and how to solve it. So I thought, oh, okay, I was really keen to know, well, how do we solve this particular problem, this glass ceiling, this imaginary glass ceiling that we all have? So there's quite a few things that I highlighted, and also that I agree with. For example, we said, am I willing to increase the amount of time that my whole life goes well? Of course, my answer is yes. I'm sure your answer is the same, that you want to increase the amount of time that your whole life goes well. Another question that he asked is, am I willing to feel good and have my life go well all the time? Absolutely. What would you say? You would say yes. So then I highlighted a few more points, like in my life I've discovered that if I cling to the notion that something's not possible, I'm arguing in favour of limitation. And if I argue for my limitations, I get to keep them. Now this is something that you've probably heard before, you know, again about arguing for your limitations. If you think you're limited and you argue for your limitation, that's what you're going to get. Again, that's in line with what he's talking about, this glass ceiling. It's all amazing. Another really good point here, I'll just read the last part of the paragraph, is where he's talking about, from my experience with a lot of people as well as myself, of the past few decades, I think we can put our minds at ease, being willing to feel naturally good and have our lives go well is not a safety hazard. I thought that's a really, really good point. Another point here that I really like is time is genuinely a radical act. So there's so many good points that I've highlighted here that are just amazing. And I've got a big yes here, you can probably see it right there. It's got yes with about 100 exclamation marks. And I'll tell you why I wrote that in the book, because it says here, are you willing to take a big leap to your ultimate level of success in love, money, and creative contribution? So I said, yes, of course I am. I'd love to take my life to such a huge level in all those three areas. So it's just great reading all that part. Just flicking through the book, actually, it talks more about focusing on yourself and how to increase your level of love, wealth, and happiness, etc. But then here's a paragraph here that really stood out to me. Just a personal thing for him. Just quickly read it for you. It's got, faced with annihilation, your ego will offset a smoke bomb of fear. It will attempt to sabotage you by telling you tales of the terrors you'll experience if you take the big leap into the zone of genius, using the smoke screen of fear as your own inner IMAX. It will project pictures of financial ruin and other disasters sure to befall you. It's amazing how Gay Hendricks talks here about just the thoughts that you have that sabotage you, and compares it to an IMAX cinema. The thoughts and how huge they are in the screen of your mind, and this is what prevents you from going through your glass ceiling. That was a good point. I really liked that. Another point here. Ultimately, fear will be banished because of fear disappears when you're fully engaged in the zone of genius. So here we now have been introduced at the moment to the zone of genius, and this is what Gaze talks about living in all the time, in that zone. Going further on into the book, there are so many excellent points about it. The one thing I would say to you, this is, out of the 150 books that I've read, this is one of the best. I mean, like I said earlier, I find myself completely challenged by this book, chapter after chapter, page after page, and it forces you to answer questions. It forces you to ask yourself these questions that you're not probably used to asking. But it's magical because when you have to ask yourself the questions, there's an answer. And so it's almost like you can grow through the evolution of the pages here. So there's a part here called Moving Through the Hardest Parts, and then the radical idea of living in your zone of genius. It truly is an amazing book. So just to conclude, I'm going to go to the final chapter that Gay Hendricks concludes here. It is actually about love, and it's about transcending the upper limits. But let's go back a little bit here, only because this is such a great. This is such a great chapter. There's this concept called. There's a chapter called "Living in Einstein Time," and I found that all very fascinating. So I'm just going to read something to you from what Gay has written in the book here. We found ourselves getting more things done without feeling rushed. We ended the workday feeling less fatigued. We suddenly had time to carry out leisurely conversations that we would have cut short in times past. One of my clients, an executive in a talent agency, gave a particularly good example of the changes he had experienced. This chapter here, I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but I urge you to explore it. It's called Living in Einstein Time, and it's all about time and how we perceive time on a day-to-day basis. But it is quite revolutionary, it's quite an eye-opener. So again, this book is amazing. It's by Hendricks, an American multi-seller author. It's called The Big Leap. I recommend it highly. One of my favorite books I've read out of the 150 books I've read in the last 2 years. Please go and buy it. Peace out.